Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. This is where we take all that source material you send us, the articles, the data, the research, and really break it down into something actionable, knowledge you can actually use.
Mm.
Today, we are, well, strapping in, I guess, for a pretty deep look at AVX staking. It comes up a lot, right? As a way to earn passive income in crypto, especially in the layer one space.
It does. And it's definitely more than just chasing yield.
Right. It's about understanding the kind of nuts and bolts that secure a major blockchain competitor.
Exactly. AVX, the native token for Avalanche, staking it is just fundamental to how the whole thing works and why it has value. So, yeah, our mission today is really to get past the simple definitions.
Okay.
We're unpacking the technical side, the economic strategy behind it, the why, and also the risks, which are very real. Liquidity risk, volatility.
Sure.
And looking at what it means for bigger players like institutions getting involved. It's not just an investment thing. It's the security layer for a high-speed network.
I think that framing is spot on because Avalanche isn't just, another chain. It consistently gets mentioned for its speed, its low costs. It's really aiming for serious enterprise use cases, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So the big question, the hook for today is, how does this proof-of-stake system actually function? And maybe more importantly, why are these big financial institutions suddenly looking at AVX staking as like a real part of their digital asset strategy? That's what we need to dig into.
Let's do it.
Okay, so before we get lost in staking details, let's just set the stage. For anyone maybe less familiar, what is Avalanche fundamentally?
Right. Context is key. So Avalanche is a layer one blockchain. Think of it like the base infrastructure layer.
Like Ethereum or Solana.
Exactly. But its big selling point, its whole competitive angle, is being really fast and really cheap to use.
That combination, speed and low cost, that's the magic formula they're chasing.
Pretty much. Compared to some older chains, Avalanche transactions can become final, like irreversible, in just a couple of seconds, not minutes.
Okay.
And that speed is absolutely critical if you want to attract those enterprise applications, things that need instant, reliable settlement.
Right. You can't have a business waiting minutes for confirmation.
Exactly. Well, what makes that speed possible and what actually holds the whole system together reliably is the native token, AVX. You really can't grasp staking without understanding what AVX does.
Okay, so let's break that down. What are the core jobs of the AVX token within the ecosystem? Why is it valuable enough that people would lock it up?
It basically has three main jobs, all interconnected. First, it's used for transaction fees.
Like gas on Ethereum.
Precisely. Anytime you do anything on the network, swap tokens, use a DeFi app, launch a smart contract, you pay a small fee in AVX.
Okay.
And importantly, a lot of these fees are actually burned.
Meaning destroyed, taken out of circulation forever.
Correct. Permanently removed, which is a key point. It adds a deflationary aspect to the token's economics. We should definitely circle back to that.
Yeah, that seems important. Okay, so fees are number one. What else?
Second, AVX is used for governance.
So voting on changes to the network.
Exactly. Holding AVX gives you a say in future decisions, upgrades, how the network evolves. It's crucial for keeping it decentralized over time.
Makes sense. And the third function, I'm guessing this is where staking comes in.
Got it. The third and most critical for our deep dive today is securing the network through staking.
Okay, so AVX isn't just the gas money, it's also the collateral, the guarantee for the network's integrity.
That's a great way to put it. Avalanche uses a proof-of-stake system. And to participate in validating transactions and securing the network, you need to put up AVX tokens as collateral. Economic skin in the game.
So if you try to cheat the system,
your staked AVX is at risk. It aligns the incentives, act honestly, secure the network, get rewarded, act maliciously, lose your stake.
You mentioned speed and reliability earlier, tied to consensus. This is where Avalanche gets technical and maybe differs from other proof-of-stake chains, right? Can we touch on why it's potentially faster?
Yeah, this is where the secret sauce is, sort of. Avalanche doesn't use the same consensus methods as many older chains, like traditional BFT. It uses the Avalanche Consensus Protocol. It's actually a family of protocols, often called Snowman.
Snowman, okay.
Yeah. The key difference is how nodes reach agreement. Instead of needing all participating nodes to agree on everything, which takes time.
Right, like getting everyone in a huge room to vote yes.
Exactly. Instead, validators in Avalanche quickly and repeatedly poll a small random group of other validators.
Ah, okay. So it's like asking a few neighbors their opinion really fast, over and over, instead of waiting for a global announcement.
That's a perfect analogy, actually. This rapid subsampling lets the network reach finality-confirming transactions so they can't be reversed extremely quickly, and it uses less computing power than traditional methods.
Which translates to speed and lower costs for the user.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that brings us back to staking for the individual. By staking your AVX, you're participating in this fast consensus system, you're helping secure the network, and you get rewarded for doing that validation work. Okay, so we know why staking is needed for this consensus. Now, how do people actually do it? The sources make it clear there are two main ways to participate. And they're really different in terms of, like, commitment, risk, technical know-how.
Got it. Let's start with the heavy hitters, the ones actually running the infrastructure.
Right. Those are the validators. They're the absolute backbone. They have to run a full Avalanche node.
Which means dedicated hardware.
Yes.
Software, staying online constantly.
Exactly. Maintaining the hardware, keeping the software updated, ensuring really high uptime, ideally 24/7. They're actively confirming transactions, participating in that rapid polling we talked about.
Sounds like a serious commitment.
It is. And because they're taking on that operational cost and technical responsibility, the sources say they need to stake a significant minimum amount of AVX. I believe currently it's around 2,000 AVX.
Wow, okay. So that's a pretty high barrier to entry, not just the money, but the tech skills and the time.
Definitely. It ensures that only serious, well-capitalized participants are running the core infrastructure.
So what about everyone else? The average person holding some AVX who just wants to earn yield without setting up a server in their basement.
Ah, that's the second role, the delegator. This is the path for most people.
Okay.
If you hold AVX but don't want the tech headache, the hardware costs, or needing that huge 2,000 AVX minimum, you can simply delegate your AVX.
Meaning you lend your stake to an existing validator.
Exactly. You choose a validator that looks reliable, has a good track record, and you entrust your stake to them. Your AVX gets added to their total stake, making them and the network more secure, and you get a share of the rewards they earn.
Without needing any technical expertise yourself.
None at all.
Right.
You're essentially using your capital to support their infrastructure.
And the big draw, the immediate reason people do this, is that reward rate. The sources consistently mention around 7–10% APY. It seems pretty good. Why that range? Is it fixed?
That's a really important question. That 7–10% isn't just pulled out of thin air. It's heavily influenced by Avalanche's own monetary policy.
How so?
Well, Avalanche has a maximum total supply of AVX. It's capped. Staking rewards come from new issuance, but that issuance rate is managed by the network's governance. They try to keep it high enough to incentivize people to stake.
Because more staking equals more security.
Exactly. But they also need to control inflation, so they can't just print infinite AVX. So it's a balancing act.
Okay, so the network itself adjusts the reward rate to keep staking attractive but sustainable, while also burning transaction fees to counteract some of that inflation?
That's the mechanism in a nutshell. It's a constant calibration. And remember that 7–10% is the potential APY. Your actual return also depends heavily on the validator you choose.
Right, you mentioned performance. How does that work?
Validators charge a small commission, like a fee for their service, taken from the rewards earned by the AVX delegated to them. And more importantly, if a validator has poor uptime, if their node is offline a lot and misses chances to validate transactions, they simply earn fewer rewards from the network overall.
And since your rewards are proportional, if they earn less, you earn less.
Precisely. So that headline 7–10% APY is really the maximum you could get before you factor in the validator's commission and, crucially, their performance record. Choosing a good validator is key.
So the mechanics are directly tied to the reward. The yield is basically the network paying people to lock up capital and behave honestly, ensuring the whole system stays secure and decentralized.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, we've covered the what validators, delegators, and the how staking for rewards. Now, let's zoom out to the so what done. Strategically, why is the staking participation so important? Beyond just individuals earning yield, why does it matter for Avalanche's long-term health and its competition with other big layer ones?
This is where we shift from thinking about individual returns to thinking about the network's architecture and its economic design. Fundamentally, the number one reason is security.
We touched on this with the consensus mechanism.
Right. Avalanche's unique consensus relies on that economic alignment. By making people lock up valuable AVX tokens to participate, The network makes sure there's a massive economic incentive to act honestly.
Because cheating could cost you your stake.
Exactly. Attacking the network, like trying to double spend or censor transactions, would require controlling a huge amount of the staked AVX, way more than 50%. This makes attacking prohibitively expensive. The more AVX is staked, the more expensive an attack becomes.
And that high level of security directly tied to how much AVX is staked is presumably what gives big companies like Deloitte the confidence to build on it.
Absolutely. You wouldn't build critical infrastructure on a network you thought could be easily compromised financially. That security underpins enterprise trust, and that trust is also bolstered by the second strategic element, supply dynamics.
Okay, what do you mean by supply dynamics?
When someone stakes AVAX, whether as a validator or a delegator, those tokens are locked up. They're taken out of the active liquid supply that's readily available for trading on exchanges.
Right, so just basic economics if you reduce the available supply of something.
It creates scarcity. Exactly. This mechanism naturally encourages long-term holding. If a significant chunk of the total AVX supply is staked, and the data shows this percentage has grown a lot over time, it reduces the selling pressure on the open market.
Creates a kind of supply squeeze.
Precisely. Fewer tokens are readily available to be sold. This reduction in liquid supply can act as a stabilizing force on the price, potentially providing a bit of a floor or support for the value of the AVX that is still trading.
Interesting. So staking is doing double duty. It's securing the network itself and acting like a monetary policy lever to reduce sell pressure and reward long-term believers.
That's the core strategic idea. It aligns incentives beautifully. Secure the network, reduce available supply, potentially support the price, and reward those providing the security.
But let's play devil's advocate, like you said earlier. Does locking up supply guarantee the price goes up? That sounds a bit too easy.
That's a really fair point.
Right.
No, absolutely not. Nothing guarantees price appreciation in crypto, especially during major market downturns.
Right.
But what reducing the liquid supply does do is make the asset potentially less vulnerable to sharp short-term sell-offs driven by panic or manipulation. It just costs more to push the price down significantly if there are fewer tokens readily available to buy up and dump. Think of it as a mechanism contributing to stability, not a magic price pump button.
That's a crucial distinction. Okay, so it's about resilience rather than guaranteed gains.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And bring you back to the individual staker, this whole strategic picture ultimately circles back to benefit them directly. Staking provides that tangible passive income stream paid out in more AVX.
Right.
That yield, combined with the potential stability from the reduced supply, becomes the core incentive for people to stick with it long term, locking in the community members who have the most conviction in the project's future.
All right, we've really laid the groundwork here. The fundamentals of Avalanche, the mechanics of staking, and why it's strategically vital for both security and economics. It's clear why it matters to the network and why it's attractive to holders. But before we pivot to the really practical stuff, like the different ways you listening can actually start staking, we just need to take a really quick moment here because honestly, your engagement is what makes these deep dives possible.
It really is.
Yeah. So if you're finding this kind of detailed breakdown valuable, if drilling down into the why and the how helps you navigate this often confusing crypto space, then please take just a second to hit like, subscribe, maybe ring that notification bell.
It helps a lot.
It truly does. It's genuinely the #1 way you can support the channel. It tells the algorithms that this content is useful, which helps more people find it. And frankly, it allows us to keep dedicating the time and resources to researching and putting together these in-depth sessions. So, yeah. Thank you for being part of this. We really appreciate it.
We absolutely do. And that support lets us transition right back into the practical side. Because now that we've got the strategic why covered, security, supply, yield, let's tackle the tactical how. How can you actually start staking your AVX? Because the method you pick really changes things.
Okay, so for someone wanting to become a delegator and not run their own node, but stake their AVX, our sources point to basically 3 main routes, and they seem to range from like fully hands-on to super simple.
That's right.
First up, there's the most direct way, using the official Avalanche wallet.
Yeah, this is often seen as the gold standard, especially for people who really value decentralization and controlling their own keys.
Self-custody.
Exactly. With the official wallet, you hold your own private keys. Nobody else. You connect directly to the network, you browse the list of validators, check their stats uptime, fees, and choose who you want to delegate to. Full control.
But also full responsibility, right? Lose your keys.
Lose your crypto. That's the trade-off. It's great for experienced Web3 users who prioritize that control, but you need to be comfortable managing your own security.
Okay, so that's option one. Option two seems to be the one that really kicked off wider adoption, according to the sources. The retail staking growth trend between 2022 and 2024. That's staking through centralized exchanges, CX.
Absolutely. This was huge. Platforms like Binance, Coinbase, Kraken, and others started offering AVX staking directly on their exchange.
Why was that such a game changer for retail?
Simplicity, pure ease of use. If you already had AVX on one of these exchanges, staking became literally just a few clicks in their interface. The exchange handled all the back-end stuff, managing the delegation, interacting with the validator, securing the keys.
Ah, but securing the keys, that's the catch, isn't it?
That is the major trade-off, yes.
That-
When you stake on a CEX, it's custodial staking. The exchange holds your AVX for you. You don't have the private keys.
Meaning you're trusting the exchange not to get hacked, go bankrupt, or restrict your access. Counterparty risk.
Exactly. Plus, the exchange isn't doing this for free. They act as a middleman, and they typically take a cut of those staking rewards, sometimes a significant chunk for providing the service and convenience.
So you get less than the full 7–10% APY potential.
Often, yes. But for millions of users, the sheer convenience and lower barrier to entry outweighed those risks and lower returns. That's why it drove so much growth.
Okay, so official wallet for control, CEX for convenience. What's the third path? Sounds like it's for more advanced users. DeFi protocols.
Yeah, this is more cutting edge. Staking through DeFi opens up different possibilities, mainly around liquid staking.
Liquid staking, what's that?
So instead of just locking up your AVX directly, you use a DeFi protocol. You deposit your AVX, and in return, you get a different token, like a receipt token that represents your staked AVX.
Okay, why would I want a receipt token?
Because that receipt token is liquid. You can trade it, use it as collateral in other DeFi applications like lending protocols or liquidity pools.
Ah, so you're still earning the base AVX staking reward, but you can also use the value of your stake position elsewhere in DeFi to potentially earn additional yield. Double dipping? Kind of.
That's the idea. It makes your stake capital more efficient, but
It's always a bud.
always, it's much more complex. You're now exposed to smart contract risk, the risk that the DeFi protocol itself has a bug or gets exploited. So, higher potential reward, but definitely higher complexity and additional layers of risk. It's an advanced strategy.
Got it. So 3 paths: direct control via the wallet, easy but custodial via CEXs, or complex but potentially higher yield via DeFi liquid staking.
Exactly. And the key thing from the network's perspective is that no matter which path people choose, they are all contributing to increasing the total amount of AVX being staked.
Right, more participation overall.
And that participation, that growth in the number of validators and delegators across all these methods, that's a really important metric we watch. It signals growing decentralization and security for the entire ecosystem.
That 7–10% APY sounds great, and the tech is interesting, but we absolutely have to hammer this point home. Staking is not risk-free. It's not like putting money in a savings account. What are the real downsides, the risks someone needs to seriously weigh up before jumping in?
This is maybe the most critical part for anyone considering it. The first big one, the unavoidable trade-off, is lockup periods.
Meaning your AVX is stuck.
Pretty much. Unlike holding AVX in your exchange wallet where you can sell it instantly, when you stake, your tokens become illiquid for a defined period.
Yeah.
You commit them.
How long are we talking? The sources mentioned a range.
Yeah, the typical range is usually somewhere between a minimum of 2 weeks up to a maximum of 1 year. The specific duration depends on the terms set by the validator you delegate to, and you agree to that when you start.
Okay, 2 weeks isn't too bad, maybe, but a year. In crypto time, that's like a decade.
Exactly. If the market takes a sudden nosedive or some major news breaks, your staked AVX is locked. You can't sell it. You just have to ride it out.
That's significant liquidity risk. You lose the ability to react quickly.
That's the core opportunity cost. You had to ask yourself, is that potential 7–10% yield worth giving up the flexibility to trade or protect your capital if the market moves against you dramatically?
A crucial calculation. Okay, lockup periods and liquidity risk. What's next?
The second major risk area is validator risk.
Choosing the wrong person to delegate to.
Essentially, yes. As a delegator, you need to do your homework. You're trusting a third party to run their node reliably and honestly. If you pick a validator who is technically incompetent or just unreliable, The main consequence is reduced rewards.
Reduced reward. Okay, let's clarify this because it's different from some other chains. On networks like, say, Ethereum 2.0, validators can face slashing, right? Where if they misbehave badly, a chunk of their staked capital and potentially their delegators' capital is actually destroyed as a penalty. Does that happen on Avalanche?
This is a really important distinction the sources highlight. Avalanche's system is generally designed to be less punitive, especially for delegators. Instead of severe slashing of your principal stake for validator misbehavior, the primary penalty is economic inefficiency or reward reduction. If your chosen validator has terrible uptime, their node crashes frequently, they miss validation opportunities. The network simply pays them fewer rewards.
And because your rewards are tied to theirs,
You get less than the advertised APY. So the risk is more about earning less than you expected, rather than losing your initial investment due to validator penalties. Your due diligence is focused on finding validators with great uptime and a solid track record, not necessarily fearing catastrophic loss from their mistakes.
that feels like a significant difference. Arguably much less scary, especially for institutions perhaps. Less risk of sudden capital destruction.
It definitely lowers one type of risk profile, which could be appealing institutionally, yes. But that brings us to the third, and honestly the biggest risk for most people. The one that can wipe out any yield you earn. Market volatility.
Ah, the value of AVX itself.
Exactly. You have to perform the coldest, hardest analysis here. Let's say you stake your AVX for a year and diligently earn that 8% APY, paid in more AVX tokens.
Sounds good so far.
But if, during that same year, the price of AVX drops by, say, 30% against the dollar, whatever your base currency is.
Then even with 8% more tokens, your total stash is worth significantly less in fiat terms than when you started.
Precisely. Your nice APY gets completely overwhelmed by the drop in the underlying asset's price. Staking rewards are paid in the native token, so you are always exposed to the price risk of that token. It doesn't guarantee profit in dollar terms. Staking is fundamentally a bet that the value of AVX will, at minimum, remain stable or ideally appreciate over your lockup period.
So lockup risk, validator performance risk, and underlying asset price risk. Anything else, maybe broader risks?
Well, there's always the overarching regulatory uncertainty. This isn't specific to Avalanche's mechanism, but it affects all staking.
How governments will treat staking rewards, for tax purposes, for example.
Exactly. Is it income, capital gains, something else? How will exchanges offering staking services be regulated? As institutional interest grows, so does regulatory scrutiny. This lack of clarity is a background risk factor that affects the long-term attractiveness, especially for those big players. It's something everyone involved needs to keep an eye on.
Okay, let's zoom out again. We've talked risks, mechanics. How does AVAX staking fit into the bigger picture? This fierce competition between Layer 1 blockchains. And why is staking specifically such a telling sign of institutional confidence?
It comes back to Avalanche's core goal, competing directly with Ethereum, particularly on speed and cost.
Right, the enterprise focus.
Exactly. Staking isn't just a side feature, it's the engine ensuring the network can actually deliver on that promise of high speed and stability reliably. Without a robust, highly participatory staking system securing its consensus, Avalanche wouldn't have the credibility or the performance to attract serious high-value applications.
So the health of the staking system is a direct indicator of the network's ability to compete for that enterprise market share.
Precisely. And we've seen some really strong signals mentioned in the sources that suggest this approach is gaining traction with institutions.
Let's talk about those. First, there was that big internal push, right? The Avalanche Rush program back in 2021.
Yeah, that was huge. A $180 million liquidity mining initiative. That money was specifically earmarked to incentivize developers to build on Avalanche, users to bridge assets over, and, critically, for people to stake AVX.
So they were directly paying people to stake and secure the network early on.
In effect, yes. It was an aggressive strategy to bootstrap activity, liquidity, and security all at once, pump prime the ecosystem. And it largely worked in attracting initial attention and locking up a significant amount of AVX early on.
Okay, that shows confidence from the inside. But the external validation is maybe even more powerful. The sources highlight the Deloitte and Avalanche partnership, also in 2021.
That was a landmark moment. Deloitte, one of the biggest professional services firms in the world.
Yeah, household name in business.
They chose Avalanche to build a new disaster recovery platform. Think about what that requires. Speed, sure, but absolute rock-solid security, reliability, data integrity.
For government-related applications, no less, FEMA, I think.
Exactly. The fact that Deloitte deemed Avalanche's staking secured consensus robust enough for that kind of critical real-world infrastructure was a massive vote of confidence. It signaled that this wasn't just theoretical crypto tech. It was ready for serious, demanding use cases.
When a company like Deloitte trusts your security model, built on staking for something like that, yeah, that's a different league than just DeFi yield farming.
Totally different league. And the sources suggest this institutional interest is continuing and deepening. We're seeing traditional financial institutions exploring AVAX staking as part of their actual treasury management strategies.
Meaning, holding AVAX as an asset and staking it for yield.
Exactly. Instead of just letting digital assets sit idle on their balance sheets, they're looking at ways to put them to work productively. Staking AVAX through secure, possibly regulated custodians allows them to earn yield on their holdings while also contributing to the security of a network they might potentially use or build on in the future.
That's fascinating. It makes the asset productive for them.
It aligns their financial incentives with the network's health.
So if someone listening wants to track this growing confidence, this institutional story, what are the key things they should watch?
I'd look at a few things. Definitely keep an eye on the correlation between the AVAX price and the overall staking rate, the percentage of total AVAX locked up. History suggests big price run-ups tend to pull in more retail staking later. But perhaps more importantly, watch for new institutional partnership announcements. Any more news like the Deloitte deal or major TradFi players publicly disclosing AVX staking strategies. Those would be very strong signals. Each major adoption like that should theoretically lead to more AVX being staked long-term, further strengthening that security narrative. Hashtag outro. So if we were to boil down this whole deep dive, AVAX staking, it's really doing several jumps at once, isn't it? It's the core consensus mechanism that secures a major layer 1 blockchain aiming for high performance. It's also a pretty clever economic tool designed to reduce circulating supply and encourage long-term holding. And yes, for the individual, it offers a real path to passive income, with that quite attractive 7–10% APY range. But it's a big but. Actually succeeding with it comes down to carefully weighing those risks we discussed. The lockup periods meaning you lose liquidity and the ever-present risk that the market value of AVX itself could drop.
Absolutely. The strategy has to fit your personal outlook and risk tolerance, like everything in crypto. Which brings us nicely to some final questions for you, the listener, to mull over as you think about your own approach.
Yeah.
First off, where do you stand on the trade-off? Would you lock up your AVAX long-term, earning that yield and helping secure the network? Or do you value liquidity more, wanting the freedom to trade quickly, even if it means missing out on staking rewards? Second, thinking about the risk profile. Given that Avalanche focuses more on reward reduction for validator issues rather than the potentially harsh capital slashing seen on chains like Ethereum, does that make AVAX staking feel safer to you? More institution-friendly? Or does Avalanche's relative newness compared to Ethereum still make it feel riskier overall? And finally, just fundamentally, what's your primary crypto strategy right now? Are you mostly focused on short-term trading, trying to catch market swings, or are you more of a long-term holder and staker, betting on the fundamental value and security of the assets you choose?
And maybe one last thought, building on that institutional angle we explored, we know retail staking often follows price momentum. But what if Avalanche really cracks the code on those big institutional partnerships, more Deloitte's, banks actively using it for treasury, maybe even for settlement?
Yeah.
If that happens at scale, does AVX staking stop being this sort of niche strategy for crypto-savvy folks? And does it actually become, well, maybe the next big mainstream passive income source in the broader world of finance? Something for everyone to think about.
A really interesting potential future to consider. That's definitely something to keep an eye on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AVX staking. We hope it was valuable. Catch you on the next one.